And we are back for the first time this season. Power Rankings NFL Week 1 edition going into it. And it's been a while. Sorry for not doing preseason ones. It just didn't seem fitting. So here we are with the regular season ones instead. But at number 32, going down a spot. And this is going to be based off of the end of last season Power Rankings. The Washington Commanders. Now, the Commanders actually did do a lot of good stuff in order to improve their team. Drafting Jaden Daniels. That's really it. Austin Ekeler, in my opinion, is an upgrade over all of their running backs, although not by a lot. However, other than that, I don't see where they've improved. They've lost Curtis Samuel and Jahan Dotson. And Antonio Gibson, I think they're really going to struggle. They did go 1-2 in the preseason, however, so that could be good. But as it stands right now, I do think they are the worst team in the league. Although that's not necessarily a bad thing this year. At number 31, we have Carolina Panthers. They're going to be going up a spot. They finished the preseason 1-2. I'm expecting them to suck again, but not as bad. I mean, you have Bryce Young going into year 2. You have in my opinion, cast that really only improved. I mean, you look at their team. You have some new receivers. You have a few new defensive players, I believe, although you did lose a few of them as well. Brian Burns being probably the biggest one possible, which does suck for you. However, at the same time, it doesn't feel like you really needed him because you weren't going to do anything with him anyway. So, if anything, you just kind of benefited from getting rid of him because as good of a player he is, you're not that good of a team. But I do think this team will definitely take a step up, although it's going to be one step. It's not going to be they jump from bottom of the barrel to playoff contender, Super Bowl contender. It's going to be bottom of the barrel to... There's probably now going to be a competition for bottom of the barrel. Obviously, last year they were the worst at 2-15. I think they're probably going to get more wins this time around. And as you can tell by the Commanders, I think the Commanders will probably be competing with them, as well as number 30 going down 10 spots to New Orleans Saints. This is a very interesting pick, I'm sure, for a lot of you guys. The Saints went 9-8 last year, finished with a winning record. Why do you have them all the way down here? Well, they did go 1-2 in the preseason, which is... It's preseason, it doesn't matter. But I'm just not a big fan of Dennis Allen as a head coach. I'm not a big fan of Derek Carr in that system. I think Derek Carr is a great quarterback. I feel like he gets a lot more hate than he should. But I feel like him in these past few years have really just not been what you expect from Derek Carr. And it's not necessarily his fault. I mean, you look at the coaches he's had, none have been spectacular. And the same with the surrounding cast. You saw how well he did in his first few years. And, well, now that his surrounding cast is subjectively worse, both when he was with the Raiders and with the Saints, he's also done worse. But you also look at the Saints, I feel like it is a slightly better offensive roster. Defense, in my opinion, could go either way. But I don't think that's going to really save them. And in the NFC, where they're now going to be going against the Buccaneers, who I imagine are only going to improve off of last year, and the Falcons, who are a brand new team and what looks to be an up-and-coming Panthers team, I think the Saints are really going to struggle this year. At number 29, going up a spot, we have the New England Patriots. The Patriots did probably the best thing they could have done this season, or going into this season, is they got a new quarterback. they're not in a good spot to compete, so they're going to let their quarterback sit, let him learn for what I'd imagine is going to be a year. Obviously, you never know what could happen. I know a lot of people don't like the Jacoby Brissett decision because Drake May is probably the better quarterback. However, it comes down to what I just said. Drake May does not have a good cast around him. You could be looking at a very poor season, or you could be looking at potentially injury because of that. And I think it's smart to just let him sit a year and kind of let the roster build itself up rather than force him to kind of build the roster on his own. But it's not going to be easy for the Patriots. I mean, you're in a division with two teams who made the playoffs last year, a third one who did surprisingly well considering their situation. And I think the Patriots are probably going to finish bottom of the AFC, and as messed up as it is to say, I don't think it's going to be close. At number 28, we do have the Cardinals. They're going to be going down 2 spots. They finished 0-3 in the preseason. The Cardinals only improved. They were such a bad roster last year that they really couldn't do any worse than what they already did. So, with that being said, they're kind of just down here because they're a bad roster. No matter how well they improved, which they did. I mean, Marvin Harrison Jr., the best receiver in the draft class, is most definitely an improvement. I mean, you see people taking him in potentially the first round of fantasy football. They're picking him to be Rookie of the Year. That's a good improvement. However, I don't know if just one receiver is really going to help you out that much. Especially with Kyle Murray. I mean, there's just not a lot to say about this team. We're just going to move on. At number 27, we have the Giants going down 4 spots. They're 1-2. I was really high on the Giants after their first preseason game this year. And, well, they lost 2 in a row after. Both not very good games by their side. And then you look at it, I feel like the Giants have a decent roster, but you have Daniel Jones as your quarterback, which could be a good thing. There's a reason Daniel Jones got paid $40 million in that offseason. It's just, can we see that Daniel Jones return to that form, or are we going to kind of be looking at the Daniel Jones who is going to be known as one of the reasons why you should not pay a top quarterback a bunch of money based off of 1 year. And he'll probably just be a backup for the rest of his career. I feel like it's going to depend. Now, obviously, the Giants did lose probably their best player in Saquon Barkley. However, they did get probably their new best player in Brian Burns, which 2 different players, 2 different sides of the ball even. However, Brian Burns, in my opinion, has more upside than an aging Saquon Barkley. I feel like the edge position has more years than a running back does. And I really like the Brian Burns trade. At number 26 now, we have the Las Vegas Raiders. They're 0-2-1. Going to be going down 4 spots. The issue with them is, in my opinion, they improved in quarterback because looking at how Gardner Minshew did last year compared to Jimmy Garoppolo, although Minshew was in a significantly better, room of receivers, running backs, O-line, tight end, you name it, they had the better position. The Colts did. However, in my opinion, I genuinely think Gardner Minshew is just a better quarterback than Jimmy G, no matter who has who. You put him in the same situation, Gardner Minshew's doing better. But the Raiders, they didn't really improve a whole lot. I mean, they lost Josh Jacobs, which is definitely going to hurt. However, you do have Zamir White. I'm curious to see how well he does as kind of that main running back. And outside of that, nothing really happened. You have a frustrated Davante Adams, it sounds like. So, I don't know how well this is going to go for you guys. This might just be kind of a year to figure out what you're doing. Obviously, in my opinion, you didn't get a quarterback because of where you picked. Obviously, you picked at 13, and 6 quarterbacks won the top 12 picks. And unless you plan on Spencer Rattler being your quarterback in the future, you weren't going to really be good this year or try and see what you can do this year. This is kind of a year where you're going to just see what players you think deserve to be on the roster next year. At number 25, we do have the Vikings. They're going to be staying the same. They finished 3-0 in the preseason. Let me be clear. The Vikings are one of the better rosters in the league. You have one of the best receiving rooms, Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison. You have one of the best tight end rooms with TJ Hawkinson. You now have a good running back in Aaron Jones. O-line's pretty solid. Defense is still concerning, but it is improving. Why are you down here? And it's simply because of J.J. McCarthy. I didn't think he was going to be your savior immediately. I didn't think he was going to be the MVP immediately. However, I did think he was going to be better than Sam Darnold or Jaren Hall or Matt Corral or whoever is in the quarterback room. And I don't even know who your starting quarterbacks. I'm assuming it's Sam Darnold. And as much as I like Sam Darnold as kind of a backup quarterback, as a starter, we've seen him on multiple teams and not do well on either of those teams. So, at this point, he's probably going to do well. I mean, he's in a situation to succeed. However, I don't think it's going to be enough to propel you guys to be a playoff team. I don't think he's going to do anything to kind of win you football games and close ones. Because of that, you're down at 25. At 24, we have the Chargers, 1 and 2. They're up 5 spots. Now, the Chargers did improve. I mean, Justin Herbert's going to be coming back. You have a better head coach, in my opinion. Although, that's very easy to do when your old coach was Brandon Staley. The only issue with you guys is your receiving room. You lost both your starters in Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. And I don't know how well it's going to be. Obviously, Quinton Johnston is a big question mark because he did struggle year one. However, I do believe he was a first-round pick for a reason. I do think he's going to have a significant increase come next year. Well, this year. Joshua Palmer, I have no idea how good he is. I mean, he's done well, but not starting receiver well. I feel like it's all going to depend. And then you lost Austin Eckler as well. So, this team, I really feel like, is in an interesting spot where you have a bunch of young, unproven guys who have a chance to kind of prove themselves. I mean, look at you guys. Your running back room is kind of Baltimore Ravens guys who have done okay, but not, elite. And then you have another guy who has done really well when he's played, but that's when he's played. So Chargers, you're a big question mark. You could either do really well or really bad this year. Either way, I think it's going to be a good thing no matter what happens because you're going to find out what positions you need to focus on. Because I think, besides the few question marks you have, you're pretty solidified. At number 23, we have the Titans up 2 spots. They finished the preseason 3-0. The Titans are a sleeper team. Will Levis looks like he could be a very, very good quarterback. I believe he will be after how I've seen him do this preseason. The issue is the division, the conference. You play in the AFC. The AFC is miles harder than the NFC. The AFC South is arguably the best division in football now. I mean, you have 3 teams who are, in my opinion, young quarterbacks, good rosters. They're all looking at Super Bowl, in my opinion, depending on, how those young quarterbacks do. You guys kind of have a young quarterback with a significantly worse roster, but that roster at the same time really flashed in the preseason. So I feel like the Titans have a chance to pull, a Cinderella story. At number 22, we do have the Broncos. They did finish 3-0 in the preseason, but they are going down 3 spots. The Broncos look like a dangerous team. I just talked about the Titans in the preseason, the Broncos as well. Bo Nix looks like he could be a rookie of the year, like the best rookie of the year. Not just this season, of all time. He looks that good. And besides your running back room, which is a bunch of questions, Devontae Williams, Jaleel McLaughlin, I think you have a pretty solid roster. Corwin Sutton is your only receiver, but that is a nice only receiver to have. I am really high in Corwin Sutton. And a second-year Marvin Mims, who looked pretty impressive his rookie year, I think will only, boost you guys. So I do think you have a definite uphill battle considering you have to play the Chiefs 2 times a year. But I don't think you're making the playoffs this year. However, I do think you will not really be in contention. Obviously, you'll probably be in the hunt majority of the season, but I don't think people are going to really put you in no matter what. But I think you're going to be about that probably 9 seed where you miss out, but your record-wise, you are right there. 21, we have the Steelers going down 7 spots. Oh boy. I like what they're doing with Russell Wilson if Justin Fields was not on a 1-year contract. This Steelers team is not in a position to succeed. I mean, you lost Deontay Johnson. George Pickens, as much as the hype is around, we have not seen him really break through yet. He's kind of still a question mark with high upside. And at worst, it looks like he will be an average, receiver. And I don't know how that offense is going to do. The defense looks phenomenal. I mean, you only improved. You got Dante Jackson now in the secondary. You still have TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith, Cam Hayward. That is a dangerous trio to have on that D-line. But ultimately, unless the defense is the one getting pick sixes and fumble recovery for touchdowns, they're not going to be the reason you win in a game of points. It's going to be the offense. And unfortunately, with that offense, I think Justin Fields is the better quarterback at this stage of their career. But I understand what they're doing with Russell Wilson. And unfortunately, I don't think they're going to score a lot of points because of that. Number 20, we do have the Colts. They're going down 2 spots. This is another team where I am very question mark. You saw how well they did last year, even without Anthony Richardson, but now Gardner Minshew's gone, so that kind of security blanket you had is no longer there. So now it's all on Anthony Richardson. If he gets hurt again, you guys could be in a world of trouble. And I don't think Joe Flacco is going to have another, late career surge. So Anthony Richardson's got to stay healthy. He's got to ball out if your team wants to do well. Or you might be looking at a bottom pick in this draft, looking at a new quarterback. That's all I have to say about the Colts. It's going to depend on Anthony Richardson. 19, we have the Falcons. They're going up 5 spots. The Falcons didn't have a great preseason. However, the Falcons are a whole new team. I mean, you look, they've got new faces. Justin Simmons, Kirk Cousins, Darnell Mooney, Matthew Judon. That's 4 new names, and those are 4 guys who, if we're talking based off of last year, you'd be, maybe not Kirk Cousins and Darnell Mooney, but you've definitely heard all of these names before, maybe not Darnell Mooney. However, I know Darnell Mooney. He's a pretty good receiver. I think they have a great chance to do well, but at the same time, this is the first year they're all together. And because of that, maybe the connection's not there immediately, so they could struggle. That's why I have them so low. Roster-wise, they are at the very top. However, that chemistry could come back to bite them, so I'm going to leave them at 19 for now. At number 18, we do have the Seahawks. They are going down 3 spots. There's nothing the Seahawks did wrong. I still don't understand why people necessarily hate on the Seahawks. I think Geno Smith, he's a great guy. Well, that doesn't really do a lot. He's a great quarterback. I mean, he's not the best, but if Geno Smith was my quarterback, I would not complain. I would be happy. It's not like we're talking about a Daniel Jones type quarterback where he's had one good year. Yeah, he did in his time with Seattle. He wasn't great anywhere else, but he's in Seattle, so he's still in his peak in my opinion. These past 2 seasons he's had, although are not mind-blowing, they're enough to put you in playoff contention for both times. And missing out by 1 game one time, making it by 1 game the other. He's not that good of a quarterback when it comes down to Patrick Mahomes or Lamar Jackson. He's a middle-of-the-pack quarterback. He will do what he has to do. And because of that, I think the Seahawks will be a middle-of-the-pack team. No matter how good their roster is, I feel like their defense is going to definitely hold them back. The receiving room, I feel like, is going to take a step back. I don't really like Tyler Lockett this year. I don't know why. I'm just getting a bad feeling about him. However, that gives JSN a chance to shine. And with Kenneth Walker, I think this team has a real chance to, do what they've done in past years, where they will be competing with a playoff spot at Week 18, no matter what situation they're in. Number 17, we have the Jaguars. They're going to be going down a spot. The Jaguars, I just don't know. You saw how good they looked last year. They looked like a powerhouse at the beginning of the year. Come the end of the year, not so much. I believe they were 8-3 at one point, and then they finished the season 8-9. That's not ideal. Obviously, in my opinion, it's going to come down to if they can keep their team together through 18 weeks. 8-3 is a great record. It's enough to probably give you a first-round bye if you just, keep that momentum going. But that's a big if, because we saw the Jaguars last year. They didn't. I think they're one of the better teams that they can keep their team together, but judging off of last year, I don't know how well they're going to do that. At number 16, we have the Browns going down for spots. This is the same thing I mentioned with the Colts. They have a great roster. Running back is going to be an issue for the beginning for the Browns. However, I really do like Jerome Ford. And I think he will be serviceable through those first few weeks that they need him to be. I love their receiving room. I'm very high on Jerry Jeudy. Obviously, I don't like the contract they gave him in terms of what he's done to deserve it, but I really like the idea of him being on that team. David Njoku's a great tight end. Amari Cooper's a great receiver. You got a very good O-line. You got the reigning defensive player of the year, Myles Garrett. You got one of the best corners in Denzel Ward, Greg Newsome, Martin Emerson. You should be a pretty good team, but you got that quarterback, Deshaun Watson. It's all going to depend on him. Number 15, we have the Rams. They're going to be going down 4 spots. My Madden 25 team. Now that I'm looking at their roster, I don't know how high I am on them. They lost Ernest Jones in a trade, who was one of their better defensive players. And I feel like the Rams are really going to depend on their receiving group. They're going to depend on Cooper Kupp staying healthy and Puka Nacua continuing and not just being a one-year wonder. And if that receiving room fails, I think the Rams are going to fail. So it's all going to depend on that receiving room. Obviously, I have them at 15 because I do believe it will succeed, just not nearly as much as they wanted to, because you can't just rely on 2 guys, really. But their team has, really good players and then really bad players. There's no, question marks. There's no in-between. They have some of the best players in some positions. They have some of the worst players in others. And that's what will come back to bite them, is if those really good players, aren't able to continue. Number 14, we have the Chicago Bears. They're going up 7 spots. They finished the preseason 3-0, technically 4-0, but I do not count the Hall of Fame game. And I think the Bears are, as you can see, I think they're going to be good. I'm not expecting them to be Super Bowl contenders good, as much as I love Caleb Williams. You can't just immediately think. They're kind of like what I said with the Falcons. You have all these new players, Keenan Allen, Caleb Williams, DeAndre Swift, Rome Odunze on that offense. And that's a very good offense when you just look at the names. However, I can't guarantee they're going to do well together. Yes, there are a bunch of big names, but we can't guarantee how well that'll translate. And I think it will translate well enough to where they will probably make the playoffs, or if not, just barely miss it. But I don't think it's going to be enough for them to kind of compete at a top level, or at least not at the beginning of the year. That's why I have them down here. Number 13, we have the Buccaneers. They're 2-1. They're going down 7 spots. I love the Buccaneers. I think they're one of the better teams. However, as you can see, I just think there's a bunch of teams who got better while the Buccaneers just kind of stayed the same. They saw how well they did last year. They made the divisional round with a new quarterback and a lot of, their old faces. So it makes sense that they would kind of keep them around. You have good chemistry with them. There's no point to really improve them. And I think that will be either what sets them above the others or will unfortunately put them kind of where they were last year, where they barely made the playoffs, and I don't think they make a playoff run if they do. At number 12, we have the Bengals. They're going up 5 spots. The Bengals, it's going to come down to the same thing with the other quarterbacks. Except we know Joe Burrow's good. We know he's one of the best, top 5. But he's not always out there. He's missed playing time every single year. Except one where, he missed a lot of training camp, which caused them to suck at the beginning. And it's going to come down to him. Unfortunately, I saw a lot of Bengals games, as my family are Bengals fans. I saw the preseason. Jake Browning didn't even look that good. So I'm not sure if you can rely on him to kind of be that guy if Joe Burrow goes down. So if Joe Burrow stays healthy, one of the best teams. But I have him at 12 because, going into year 5, that's not a guarantee, unfortunately. At number 11, we have the Green Bay Packers going down 4 spots. This is another one where it's going to depend on a lot of guys. We saw them last year. Their chemistry is one of the best out there. But at the same time, this is all depending on if they are able to continue that. We had a bunch of rookies, or first-time starters with Jordan Love. If Jordan Love's able to continue and only improve off of what he did, fantastic. They're going to be competing with the Lions and the 49ers and the Cowboys for the NFC. If not, they're probably going to be where they were last year, where they're Week 18, they're fighting for a playoff spot. And I think that's probably a good thing for the Packers because there's nothing to say. There's no reason it would be good. I love Jordan Love. I'm a Packers fan, but I hate the fact that we gave him $55 million off of one season. Number 10, entering the top 10, we got the Dolphins. I think they have one of the best rosters. The only reason I have them here is because some games, specifically teams with winning records, no. If they are playing the Patriots every week, they will go 17-0. If they are playing the Chiefs every week, they are going to go 0-17. Unfortunately for them, they cannot win against good teams. We saw it last year. They only beat one winning team at the time. So unfortunately, Dolphins, I think you have a great team. I know how good you can be, but you guys just shoot yourself in the foot, it feels like. Number 9, we have the Jets going up 19 spots. Here's the thing with the Jets. They did the right thing this offseason by signing a backup quarterback. We know how good the Jets can be. They went 7-10 with Zach Wilson as their starting quarterback. You have Tyrod Taylor now as your backup and Aaron Rodgers as your starter. If Aaron Rodgers gets injured, I still believe the Jets have a good chance to make the playoffs because I've seen Tyrod Taylor play before. I know he has that potential to be a low-tier starter, and fortunately for the Jets, that's probably all they're going to need to push themselves into the playoffs is someone who's able to just be serviceable. Doesn't have to create magic plays 40 yards down the field, while getting hit. They just need someone who's able to manage the game and manage them to get wins. Doesn't have to be pretty, just has to be a win. And with Tyrod Taylor, I think he's able to do that. Number 8, we have the Bills down 3 spots. As you can tell, I put 3 AFC East teams right in a row. I think all 3 of these teams are interchangeable. I think they all have a great chance of winning the division. I think whoever wins the division is probably going to have the 1 seed. I will say it right now. This division is a juggernaut in terms of, contenders. And then there's the Patriots. I'm going to give the nod to the Bills, though, because we've seen them do it before. Not the 1 seed, but they won the AFC East the past few years. They've won against good teams, unlike the Dolphins. They've stayed healthy in terms of the positions that will push them above the finish line, unlike the Jets. And I think that's going to be what changes the game in terms of who wins that division. Number 7, we have the Cowboys. They're going to be going up 3 spots. The Cowboys, I mean, look at their roster. They have a top 10 quarterback. Ooh, that running back is not good. If Dak Prescott gets injured, they are screwed. A top 10 receiver. A top 10 O-line. Top 15 tight end. I would not call him top 10 quite yet. And you got some of the greatest players. Trayvon Diggs, Michael Parsons, DeMarcus Lawrence, just to name a few. They have a chance to be really good, and I think they will be, but they just always seems there's just those few games that they shouldn't have no business losing that they end up losing. At number 6, we have the Texans going up 2 spots. I think the Texans are maybe going to win the Super Bowl. I mean, they are that good of a team in my opinion. I mean, you know you're a good team when Noah Brown is not even good enough to make your receiving room. I think the Texans are winning the Super Bowl. I genuinely believe that. And I think they are one of the best teams in the league. However, I just can't put them above some of these teams based off of 1 year. I think I'm going to have to see a bit more. Number 5, we have the Ravens. They're going to be going down a spot. The Ravens, I mean, I same thing. I see them doing the same exact thing last year where they're going to be dominant. They're going to make the playoffs and they're going to crumble at the end like they always do. History always repeats itself with this team. They did lose a few positions. The running back, however, they replaced it with Derrick Henry, so that's not really a downgrade. Now, he did lose a few receivers, but I think they have a great chance to do what they did last year. And I think, and unfortunately, they're going to, and that's going to mean losing in the playoffs again. Number 4, we have the Lions going down a spot. The Lions only improved. There's no denying that. You didn't think they'd be able to. They did. You look at their roster, Jared Goff has turned into a top 10 quarterback. David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs is one of the best running back duos ever. Amon-Ra St. Brown is a top 10 receiver. Jameson Williams looks like he could be very good. Sam Laporta has turned into a top 5, arguably, tight end. You have a great O-line. And your defense only improved in terms of what positions you needed to build off of. The Lions look scary. And I think they're going to continue off this success. However, I will say the only thing that costs them is Dan Campbell and his willingness to go for it. It cost them the 49ers game in the playoffs. It cost them some other games. He needs to keep that aggression, but tone it down. I'm not saying punt it on 4th and 1 every time, but I'm saying don't go for it every time either. Especially when it's at your own 30. Number 3, we have the Eagles. They're going up 9 spots. I mean, just look at the Eagles. We know how good they can be. We saw them 2 years ago make the Super Bowl. Last year, they were the best team until they weren't. And this year, they've only improved. They have undeniably, in my eyes, the best roster in the league, and it's not even close. Jahan Dotson as a wide receiver free, I did not think I'd be saying in 2024. I just didn't. And yet here we are. The amount of not just good players they have as starters, but they have high-tier backups, some of which are low-tier starters. And that is insane to say. I think the Eagles, no matter what happened, are going to be one of the best teams ever. The only thing that could hurt them is if injuries happen, and, well, let's hope that doesn't. Number 2 is the 49ers. They're staying the same. And number 1 is the Chiefs. They're staying the same. Even though I think the Chiefs are nowhere near as good as some of these teams roster-wise, you have Patrick Mahomes. Even though the 49ers might be worse than some of these teams roster-wise, You made the Super Bowl last year. I can't move these two teams down to start the season when they did what they did and represented their respective conferences in the Super Bowl, and they went to overtime, and they fought tooth and nail for it. Both teams did, and I can't move them down because of that. So with that being said, that is going to do it for my Week 1 power ranking. This was a long video, 35 minutes. That's how you know football's back for me. I will see you guys next time with predictions. And yeah, that's really it. For Rams franchise, I know I mentioned it earlier when talking about the Rams. That's if I had to guess, it's gonna start Friday. I've heard that the rosters are rumored to come out Thursday. The Week 1 rosters, that's what we wait on for that franchise. So as soon as that comes out, which I'm hoping is Thursday, so expect the start on Friday. But if not, then, I'll keep you posted on Twitter, USC_Wisely, same as my YouTube. Goodbye. Hope you enjoyed. See you again next time.